The crystal chandelier above table 12 cast perfect light on the most expensive dinner of Zara's life and the last one she would ever share with her husband. She sat frozen as Jerome's voice cut through the elegant atmosphere of Lou Bernardin, his words sharp enough to slice through her heart. "You're an embarrassment, Zara. Look at you. Can't even dress properly for a business dinner." The three men at their table, Jerome's potential business partners, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Their wives exchanged glances, a mix of pity and second-hand embarrassment coloring their faces. Zara felt heat rise to her cheeks, but not from shame. The fury building inside her was white-hot and dangerous. She looked down at her outfit, a sophisticated black dress, modest pearls and low heels. Professional. Appropriate. Everything Jerome had specifically requested when he'd invited her to this dinner 3 days ago. "Jerome, I think," she started. "Don't think. That's the problem. You never think." His laugh was cruel, performative. "Gentlemen, this is what happens when you marry beneath your station. My wife here used to work at a community center. Can you imagine?" The eldest of the three men, Harrison Whitmore, frowned. "There's nothing wrong with public service." "Public service?" Jerome interrupted. "She handed out food stamps and helped people fill out welfare forms. Meanwhile, I was building my investment firm from nothing." Zara's hands trembled as she reached for her water glass. She had actually been the assistant director of community development, managing a budget of $2 million and overseeing programs that helped hundreds of families. But Jerome had always twisted her past to fit his narrative. "The point is," Jerome continued, "success requires sacrifice. Sometimes that means leaving dead weight behind." The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Even the soft jazz music couldn't cover the tension at table 12. Zara watched her husband's face, searching for any trace of the man she'd married 8 years ago. The man who used to call her his brilliant queen, and praise her dedication to helping others. That man was gone. Maybe he'd never existed at all. Jerome stood abruptly, tossing his napkin onto his plate. "Gentlemen, I apologize for this evening. My wife has ruined what should have been a celebration of our upcoming partnership." "Jerome, please sit down," Whitmore's wife Patricia said softly. "This isn't necessary." "It absolutely is necessary." Jerome's voice rose slightly. "You see, this is exactly what I mean. Zara doesn't understand the world we live in now. She's holding me back from reaching my full potential." He pulled out his phone and made a show of checking the time. "I have an early meeting tomorrow. The bill tonight is $5,000. Zara, I trust you can handle it. Consider it your contribution to my business growth." The words hit her like ice water. $5,000. He knew exactly how much was in her personal checking account because he'd been monitoring it for months, claiming he was helping her budget better. "You're leaving?" she asked quietly. "I'm choosing my future over my past." He leaned down, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Don't embarrass me further by making a scene." Jerome straightened his tie, shook hands with the stunned businessman and walked away. Just like that. 8 years of marriage ended between the appetizer and the main course. The table fell silent. Zara could feel every eye in the restaurant on her. The whispers started immediately, soft, urgent conversations at nearby tables as people tried to process what they just witnessed. "Honey," Patricia Whitmore reached across the table, "we can take care of the bill. This isn't your responsibility." Zara looked at the kind woman, then at the two other couples who were staring at her with mixtures of sympathy and horror. These people had just watched her husband humiliate her in the most public way possible, and now they wanted to rescue her. But she didn't need rescuing. She stood slowly, her legs surprisingly steady. "Thank you for your kindness, but that won't be necessary." She reached into her purse and pulled out her wallet. Inside was her credit card, the one with a limit high enough to cover this ridiculous bill twice over. She had the money. She'd always had money. Her inheritance from her grandmother sat in a separate account that Jerome didn't even know about. But as she held the card, something shifted inside her chest. A door closing. A lock clicking into place. She put the wallet back in her purse. "Actually," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the restaurant, "Jerome was right about one thing. This bill is his responsibility. After all, he's the one who ordered the most expensive wine. He's the one who insisted on the chef's special tasting menu for everyone." She looked directly at Harrison Whitmore. "Mr. Whitmore, when Jerome contacts you tomorrow about your business deal, you might want to ask him about the kind of man who abandons his wife with a $5,000 restaurant bill." The man's eyes widened with understanding. Zara smiled, not the polite, careful smile she'd worn for years, but something new. Something dangerous. "Gentlemen, ladies, enjoy your evening. I know I will. She walked out of Lou Bernardine with her head high, leaving Jerome's mess exactly where it belonged behind her. Outside, the September air hit her face like freedom. She pulled out her phone and called an Uber. While she waited, she did something she hadn't done in years. She deleted Jerome's number from her contacts. This wasn't the end of her story. This was the beginning. The house felt different when Zara walked through the front door at midnight. Larger somehow, like it was holding its breath. She kicked off her heels and let them fall where they landed, something Jerome always hated. The small rebellion felt delicious. She climbed the stairs to their bedroom, her hand trailing along the banister Jerome had insisted on having custom made from imported Italian marble. Everything in this house had a story about Jerome's success, Jerome's taste, Jerome's vision for their life. None of it had ever been about her. The bedroom door was open and moonlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Their king-size bed sat perfectly made, exactly as their housekeeper had left it that morning. But something was wrong with the scene. Different. Zara flicked on the lights and saw it immediately. Jerome's dresser drawers were slightly open. His closet door wasn't quite closed. Someone had been here, packing in a hurry. Her heart hammered as she walked to his closet. Half his suits were gone. His favorite shoes missing. The expensive watch collection he was so proud of completely cleared out. He hadn't just walked out on her at dinner. He planned this. Fury mixed with something that might have been relief as she moved through the room, cataloging what was missing. His laptop. His important papers. The framed photo of his parents that usually sat on his nightstand. But he'd left something behind. On his pillow sat a manila envelope with her name written across it in Jerome's precise handwriting. Inside she found papers. Lots of papers. The first was a letter, typed on his business letterhead like she was one of his clients. Zar. By the time you read this, I will have made the decision to move forward with my life. Our marriage has become a liability to my professional growth, and I can no longer allow your limitations to hold back my potential. I am filing for divorce. My attorney will contact you within the week. I trust you will be reasonable about the settlement. Given that most of our assets were acquired through my business success, I expect this process to be straightforward. I have removed my personal belongings from the house. You may remain there for 30 days while we sort out the details. Sincerely, Jerome. Sincerely. He'd signed off like she was a business associate he'd never see again. Zara read the letter 3 times before the words fully sank in. Then she looked at the other papers in the envelope. Bank statements. Credit card bills. Investment account summaries. All in her name. Her hands shook as she spread the documents across the bed. Account after account, all showing the same pattern. Large withdrawals. Cash advances. Transfers to accounts she didn't recognize. Jerome had been systematically draining their joint accounts for months. Every penny they'd saved together, every investment they'd made as a couple gone. But these weren't their accounts. These were hers. Her name only. Accounts she'd forgotten about, ones she'd opened years ago before they married and consolidated everything. She grabbed her laptop and started checking balances online. Account after account showed the same devastating truth. Jerome had somehow gained access to her personal finances and had been stealing from her for 6 months. Her phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Stop trying to log into the accounts. I changed all the passwords. You'll get what you deserve in the divorce. The phone slipped from her hands and clattered to the floor. He'd been watching. Monitoring her computer activity. Probably tracking every move she made online. A sound escaped her throat, half laugh, half sob. She'd been so careful to be the perfect wife, never questioning his decisions, never challenging his authority. She'd let him handle their finances completely, trusting him to take care of their future. Instead, he'd been planning her destruction while she smiled at his business dinners and pretended not to notice how he looked at his young assistant. Candace. The 25-year-old with perfect skin and ambitious eyes who had started working for Jerome 6 months ago. The same time the withdrawals began. Zara walked to Jerome's home office and tried the door. Locked, but she knew where he kept the spare key taped under his desk drawer, because Jerome was predictable in ways that mattered. The office looked normal at first glance. Neat desk, expensive leather chair, walls covered with awards and photos of Jerome shaking hands with important people. But when she looked closer, she found what she was looking for. In his desk drawer, behind files marked tax documents, she found a folder labeled CR. Personal. Candace Rodriguez. Personal. The folder contained copies of bank statements for accounts in Candace's name. Large deposits, all from Jerome's business account. Rent payments for an apartment Zara had never heard of. Credit card bills for expensive dinners, jewelry, weekend trips. Jerome hadn't just been having an affair. He'd been building a whole second life. At the bottom of the folder was a printed email exchange between Jerome and Candace's father, Roberto Rodriguez, a wealthy real estate developer Zara recognized from society pages. Jerome, I appreciate your interest in my daughter, but I need to know your intentions are serious. Candace tells me you're married. Mr. Rodriguez, my current situation is temporary. I am finalizing my divorce and will be free to pursue a serious relationship with your daughter very soon. As you know, I have significant assets and a growing business that would make me a suitable partner for Candace. Jerome, I will consider your request for Candace's hand, but only after your divorce is complete and your financial situation is stable. I will not have my daughter involved in a scandal. The emails were dated 2 weeks ago. Jerome had been planning to propose to Candace. With Zara's money. She sat in his leather chair, surrounded by evidence of his betrayal, and felt something cold and sharp crystallize in her chest. Not heartbreak that would come later. This was something harder. More dangerous. Jerome thought he was so clever. He thought he'd left her with nothing but humiliation and debt. He was wrong. Zara reached for the phone and dialed her lawyer friend Rochelle, even though it was nearly 2 a.m. Rochelle? It's Zara. I need you to wake up. We have work to do. The game had begun and Jerome had just taught her all the rules. Rochelle Martinez had been Zara's friend since law school, back when Zara was pursuing her MBA and Rochelle was working toward her JD. They'd studied together, complained about their professors together, and sworn they'd never let any man make them feel small. Now, sitting in Rochelle's downtown office at 7 a.m, Zara was grateful she'd kept that promise to herself. Show me everything, Rochelle said, her voice sharp with professional focus. Zara spread the documents across the conference table. Bank statements, credit card bills, the emails about Candace, photos she'd taken of Jerome's office. Everything she'd discovered in the sleepless hours after reading his letter. Rochelle studied each page with the intensity of a surgeon examining an X-ray. Her dark eyes moved quickly, taking in details that would be meaningless to most people but were worth their weight in gold to a divorce attorney. This is bad, Rochelle said finally. For me or for him? Oh honey. For him. Very, very bad. Relief flooded through Zara's chest. She'd been afraid she was overreacting, that somehow Jerome's behavior was legal even if it was cruel. He accessed accounts that were solely in your name, Rochelle continued. That's theft. Financial abuse. And if he was transferring your money to fund his affair. She whistled low. The judge is going to have thoughts about that. But can I get it back? The money? Better than that. We can make sure he pays for what he's taken, plus damages. Rochelle leaned back in her chair. Tell me about your assets. Everything. Don't leave out anything. For the next hour, Zara painted a complete picture of her financial life. The inheritance from her grandmother that Jerome didn't know about, $600,000 sitting in an account she'd never touched. Her retirement fund from her previous job. The small investment portfolio she'd built before they married. You're not broke, Rochelle said with satisfaction. You're actually in a much stronger position than he realizes. What do you mean? Jerome thinks he's left you with nothing but debt and humiliation. But you have resources he doesn't know about. That gives us a huge advantage. Rochelle pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. Here's what we're going to do. First, we freeze all the joint accounts immediately. He can't take another penny. Won't that tip him off that I'm fighting back? Absolutely. And that's exactly what we want. Men like Jerome make mistakes when they're angry. When he realizes you're not going to roll over and play victim, he's going to do something stupid. Zara thought about the Jerome she'd married versus the man who'd humiliated her last night. You're right. When things don't go his way, he gets reckless. Good. Reckless is useful. Rochelle continued writing. Second, we're going to make sure everyone in his professional circle knows exactly what kind of man he is. The restaurant incident last night was just the beginning. I don't want to look vindictive. Vindictive? Honey, you're not being vindictive. You're being honest. There's a difference. Rochelle set down her pen and looked directly at Zara. Let me ask you something. How long have you been making yourself smaller to make him feel bigger? The question hit like a physical blow. What do you mean? Your MBA. You graduated summa cum laude, right? Top 5% of your class. Yes, but... And you speak 3 languages fluently. You managed a $2 million budget at the community center. You've written articles about urban development that were published in national journals. Zara stared at her friend. She'd forgotten about those articles. Jerome had always dismissed them as hobby writing. Yet somehow in the past few years, you've been letting people think you're just Jerome's wife. The woman who used to work at a community center, like it was some kind of failure. The truth of it burned. Somewhere along the way she'd allowed Jerome to rewrite her story. She'd become smaller, quieter, less ambitious, all to make space for his ego. I lost myself, she said quietly. No. You hid yourself. There's a difference. And now we're going to remind everyone, especially Jerome, exactly who Zara Collins really is. Rochelle flipped to a new page in her legal pad. Tell me about your professional network. People from grad school, former colleagues, industry contacts. As Zara talked, she realized how extensive her network actually was. She'd maintained relationships with professors, former co-workers, other professionals she'd met at conferences and seminars. People who respected her work and her mind. People Jerome had slowly convinced her to avoid because they were beneath their social circle now. I think, Rochelle said slowly, it's time for you to get back into consulting. Consulting. Urban development. Non-profit management. Community planning. All the things you were brilliant at before you became Mrs. Jerome Patterson. The idea sent a thrill through Zara that she hadn't felt in years. You think I could build a practice? I think you could build an empire. Especially once word gets out about how Jerome treated you. People love supporting the underdog, particularly when the underdog has an MBA and a track record of success. They spent another hour planning Zara's re-entry into professional life. Rochelle had contacts at several firms that contracted with consultants. There were non-profits looking for strategic planning help. Urban development projects that needed community liaisons. The beautiful thing, Rochelle said, is that half of Jerome's client base are exactly the kind of organizations that would hire you. Community banks, local government agencies, mid-sized developers who care about public relations. You want me to compete with him directly? I want you to be so successful that he realizes what an idiot he was to throw you away. I want him to watch you thrive while his own world falls apart. Zara felt something shift inside her chest. Not revenge exactly. Something cleaner than that. Something that felt like justice. There's one more thing, Rochelle said. The restaurant bill from last night. Don't pay it. But, don't pay it. Let them come after Jerome. He's the one who walked out. He's the one who ordered the expensive wine and left his wife to handle his mess. When his business partners hear that Lou Bernardine had to chase him down for payment. She smiled grimly. Let's just say it won't help his reputation. As Zara left Rochelle's office, she felt lighter than she had in years. For the first time since she'd said I do to Jerome, she was making decisions based on what she wanted instead of what would make him happy. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jerome. Have you taken care of the restaurant bill yet? She deleted the message without responding. Let him wonder. 2 weeks later, Zara sat in her new office space, a small but elegant suite she was subletting from another consultant downtown. The morning sun streamed through tall windows, lighting up the business cards scattered across her desk. Zara Collins, Urban Development Consultant. Not Mrs. Jerome Patterson. Just Zara. Her phone rang, displaying a number she recognized. Harrison Whitmore, one of the businessmen who'd witnessed Jerome's performance at Lou Bernardine. Miss Collins? This is Harrison Whitmore. I hope I'm not overstepping, but I wanted to reach out after what happened at dinner 2 weeks ago. Zara's pulse quickened. Mr. Whitmore. How can I help you? Actually, I was hoping I could help you. My firm has been looking for a consultant to help us navigate some community relations issues with a development project. After doing some research, I learned about your background and your excellent reputation. Research? That was interesting. What kind of project? Mixed-use development in East Portland. Residential and commercial space, but we need someone who understands community concerns and can help us build genuine partnerships with local organizations. It was exactly the kind of work Zara had specialized in before Jerome convinced her that her career was incompatible with their lifestyle. I'd be very interested in discussing the project, she said. Excellent. I should mention this came up because I was so impressed by how you handled yourself that night at the restaurant. Grace under pressure is a rare quality in business. After they scheduled a meeting, Zara sat back in her chair and smiled. Word was getting around about Jerome's behavior, just as Rochelle had predicted. But instead of people pitying her, they were admiring her strength. Her computer chimed with an email from another potential client, a non-profit that needed help restructuring their programs to qualify for a federal grant. Then another, from a community bank looking for someone to help them develop partnerships with local small businesses. By noon, she'd booked 3 client meetings for the following week. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jerome. "We need to talk. Meet me at the house tonight at 7. She stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "I'm busy. If you want to communicate, contact my attorney." His response came immediately, "Don't be dramatic. This is about our future. Our future ended when you walked out on me and left me with a $5,000 bill. I'll pay you back for the restaurant. We need to discuss the divorce settlement." Zara almost laughed. He still thought she'd paid that bill. Still thought he held all the cards. "My attorney will handle the settlement. Don't contact me directly again." She turned off her phone and focused on work. Real work that mattered to her, not the endless social performances Jerome had demanded. That evening, she was researching zoning laws for the Portland project when her doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she could see Jerome standing on her porch, holding a bouquet of roses and wearing the contrite expression he'd perfected over the years. She didn't open the door. "Zara, I know you're in there. We need to talk." She continued reading her research, making notes in the margins of the zoning documents. "I made a mistake," he called through the door. "I was under a lot of pressure and I handled things poorly. But we can fix this." The word "we" made her laugh out loud. When had Jerome ever considered them a team? "Zara, please. Don't throw away 8 years of marriage because of one bad night." One bad night. As if the months of financial theft and emotional abuse had all happened in a single evening. Her phone, which she turned back on to check work emails, started ringing. Jerome's number. She sent it to voicemail. It rang again. Voicemail. Again. This time she answered. What part of "don't contact me" was unclear? "Zara, listen to me. I know I hurt you, but I can make it right. I'll pay back every penny I borrowed from the accounts. We can go to counseling. We can fix this." Borrowed? The word came out sharp enough to cut glass. "You stole from me, Jerome. For months. To fund your affair with your assistant." Silence on the other end. "Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I was too stupid to figure it out?" "It wasn't. It's not what you think." "Really? What is it then?" "Because I have bank statements and emails and receipts that paint a pretty clear picture. Candace and I, it's complicated. I imagine it is. Especially since her father won't let you marry her until after our divorce is final and your financial situation is stable. That must be frustrating." Another long silence. "How did you never mind?" "Zara, be reasonable. You're not equipped to handle life on your own. You haven't worked in years. You don't understand business or money or—" "Stop." The word came out with such force that Jerome went quiet immediately. "I have an MBA from Northwestern. I managed multi-million-dollar budgets. I speak 3 languages and I've published research in national journals. The only thing I don't understand is how I let you convince me I was less than I am." "That's not what I meant." "Yes, it is. That's exactly what you meant. Just like you meant it when you called me a disgrace in front of your business associates. Just like you meant it every time you diminished my accomplishments to make yourself feel bigger." She could hear him breathing heavily on the other end. "Here's what's going to happen, Jerome. You're going to stay away from me. You're going to communicate only through our attorneys. And you're going to discover that the woman you thought was too weak to survive without you is actually strong enough to destroy you." She hung up and turned off the phone. Through the window, she watched Jerome stand on her porch for another 10 minutes, probably waiting for her to change her mind and run out to apologize. Instead, she poured herself a glass of wine and returned to her research. She had work to do. The video went viral on a Tuesday. Zara was in her office, preparing for a client presentation, when Rochelle called with barely contained excitement in her voice. "Have you checked social media today?" "No, why?" "Someone recorded Jerome's little performance at Le Bernardin. The whole thing. It's everywhere." Zara's stomach dropped. She'd managed to avoid thinking about the other diners that night, the way they'd all stared as Jerome humiliated her in front of the entire restaurant. How bad is it? For Jerome? Career ending. For you? It's the best thing that could have happened. Rochelle texted her the link, and Zara watched in horrified fascination as the scene unfolded on her laptop screen. Someone had filmed it from a nearby table, probably thinking they were capturing a celebrity sighting or business deal gone wrong. Instead, they documented Jerome's complete destruction of his own reputation. The video was crystal clear. Jerome's voice carried perfectly as he called her an embarrassment, mocked her background, and declared that success required leaving dead weight behind. The camera caught his smug expression as he abandoned her with the bill. But it also caught something else: Zara's dignified response. Her refusal to be rescued by the other diners. Her calm, cutting words about Jerome's character as she walked away. The comments section was brutal. What kind of man abandons his wife at a restaurant? She handled that with so much class. He's pathetic. I hope she takes him for everything in the divorce. Someone needs to identify this guy so I can make sure never to do business with him. That last comment had been granted. Social media detectives had identified Jerome within hours. His business address, his LinkedIn profile, even photos of his office building were circulating. The best part, Rochelle continued, is what happened next. 3 of Jerome's business partners have already called to cancel meetings this week. That deal he was trying to close at dinner? Dead in the water. Zara's phone started ringing. Clients, reporters, friends she hadn't heard from in years. Everyone wanted to know if she was okay, if she needed anything, if there was any way they could support her. By noon, she'd received 5 new consulting inquiries and an invitation to speak at a conference about women in business. A local TV station wanted to interview her about maintaining dignity in difficult circumstances. Her email inbox was flooded with messages of support. Former colleagues, business acquaintances, even people she'd worked with years ago at the community center. The message that surprised her most came from Patricia Whitmore, Harrison's wife, who had witnessed the restaurant incident. Dear Zara, I haven't been able to stop thinking about what happened at dinner. I've been married for 35 years, and I've never seen anyone handle such cruelty with so much grace. I wanted you to know that Harrison immediately canceled his business relationship with your husband. We don't associate with men who treat women that way. I also wanted you to know that I've shared your consulting information with several organizations I'm involved with. They're always looking for skilled professionals, and your reputation precedes you. If you ever need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. With admiration, Patricia Whitmore. Zara read the email 3 times, her throat tight with emotion. She'd spent so many years feeling isolated, convinced that Jerome's version of reality was the truth. Now she was discovering that other people had been watching, judging, and finding Jerome's behavior as unacceptable as she had. Her assistant knocked and entered with a stack of phone messages. Miss Collins? There's been a constant stream of calls. I've scheduled the interviews you approved, but there are about 20 more requests. What kind of requests? Business inquiries mostly, but also some personal ones. Women saying they've been in similar situations and asking for advice. A couple of book agents wondering if you'd be interested in writing about your experience. A book. The idea had never occurred to her, but it made sense. How many women were living smaller lives to accommodate men who didn't deserve their sacrifice? Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Candace. We need to talk. Zara stared at the message for a long moment. Jerome's mistress wanted to communicate. The woman who had been living off stolen money and planning to marry a man who wasn't even divorced yet. She deleted the message without responding. 20 minutes later, her phone buzzed again. Please. Jerome is losing his mind. He's blaming me for everything. I need to know what you're planning to do. This time Zara responded, I'm planning to live my life. What you and Jerome do is no longer my concern. You don't understand. He's been lying to both of us. I had no idea he was stealing from you. That's between you and him. You told me you were separated. That the divorce was already in progress. I never would have gotten involved if I knew the truth. Zara almost felt sorry for the younger woman. Almost. But Candace had chosen to believe Jerome's version of events without ever questioning why his wife was still living in their shared home, still appearing at his business functions, still wearing her wedding ring. Take it up with Jerome. Don't contact me again. She blocked the number and turned her attention back to work. By 5 o'clock, she'd booked enough consulting contracts to keep her busy through the next quarter. Her calendar was full, her bank account was growing, and her reputation was stronger than it had been in years. Jerome, according to Rochelle's sources, was having a very different day. His office got calls all day from people canceling appointments, Rochelle reported during their evening check-in. 2 of his biggest clients have postponed their projects indefinitely. And Lou Bernardine sent a collection notice to his office. He still hasn't paid? Apparently not. Which means everyone who walks into that restaurant now knows that Jerome Patterson is the guy who stiffed them on a $5,000 bill. Zara felt a flicker of satisfaction. Not revenge exactly. Justice. There's more, Rochelle continued. Candace's father saw the video. He's reportedly reconsidering his daughter's relationship choices. Meaning? Meaning Jerome's meal ticket just got pulled out from under him. Without Roberto Rodriguez's backing, Jerome can't afford to maintain the lifestyle he's been promising Candace. Zara leaned back in her office chair, watching the city lights twinkle outside her window. For the first time in months she felt like she could breathe deeply. Rochelle? Yeah. Thank you. For believing in me when I'd forgotten how to believe in myself. Honey, I didn't do anything except remind you who you already were. The rest of this? This is all you. After hanging up, Zara sat in her office for another hour, not working, just thinking. 6 months ago, she'd been shrinking herself to fit into Jerome's idea of the perfect wife. Tonight, she was building something that was entirely her own. Her phone rang one more time. Jerome's number. She let it go to voicemail. The message was desperate, angry, and completely predictable. Threats about the divorce settlement, accusations that she was trying to destroy him, demands that she call him back immediately. She deleted it and went home. Tomorrow she had 3 client meetings and a TV interview. She had work to do and a life to build. Jerome's problems were no longer her concern. 3 weeks after the video went viral, Zara was reviewing contracts in her office when her assistant announced an unexpected visitor. Miss Collins? There's a Roberto Rodriguez here to see you. He says it's personal. Candace's father. Zara's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. Send him in. Roberto Rodriguez was exactly what she'd expected: tall, impeccably dressed, with the kind of presence that commanded attention without effort. He entered her office with the confidence of a man accustomed to getting what he wanted. Miss Collins. Thank you for seeing me without an appointment. Mr. Rodriguez. Please have a seat. What can I do for you? He settled into the chair across from her desk, his dark eyes assessing. I wanted to apologize. Whatever she'd been expecting, it wasn't that. Apologize for what? For my daughter's role in the destruction of your marriage. And for my own poor judgment in initially encouraging Jerome's pursuit of her. Zara studied his face, looking for any sign of manipulation or ulterior motive. She found only genuine regret. Mr. Rodriguez, your daughter is an adult. She made her own choices. Perhaps. But she made those choices based on lies Jerome told her. And I facilitated those lies by treating him as a legitimate suitor before verifying his character. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. I wanted you to see this. Inside were bank statements, receipts, and copies of checks. All documenting the money Jerome had stolen from Zara's accounts and spent on Candace. Where did you get these? Candace brought them to me yesterday. After the video went public and Jerome's business began falling apart, she started asking questions. She discovered that the apartment he was paying for, the gifts he bought her, the expensive dinners, all of it was funded with money he stole from you. Zara felt a cold satisfaction reading through the documents. Every romantic gesture Jerome had made toward his mistress had been paid for with his wife's money. She's devastated, Roberto continued. She genuinely believed you were separated and that Jerome was financially successful in his own right. When she learned the truth, she ended the relationship? Immediately. And she wants to make amends, though I told her you have no obligation to speak with her. Zara set down the papers and looked directly at Roberto. Why are you telling me this? What do you want? Nothing from you. But I wanted you to know that there are consequences for Jerome's actions beyond just the divorce proceedings. What kind of consequences? Roberto's smile was sharp. I have significant influence in this city's business community. Word has already spread about Jerome's character and his financial difficulties. Several of his remaining clients have decided to take their business elsewhere. You're destroying his career. I'm ensuring that people know who they're dealing with. A man who steals from his wife to impress another woman is not someone I would trust with my investments. Zara understood the message. This wasn't just about the affair or even the theft. Jerome had tried to use Roberto's daughter to advance his social and financial position, and Roberto was making sure everyone knew it. There's something else, Roberto said. Jerome approached me last week asking for a loan to keep his business afloat. You said no. I told him that any man who would abandon his wife with a restaurant bill wasn't someone I could trust to repay a debt. After Roberto left, Zara sat quietly for several minutes, processing the conversation. Jerome's world was collapsing faster than she'd anticipated. The viral video had been just the beginning. Her phone rang. Rochelle. You're not going to believe this, her friend said without preamble. Jerome's business partner just filed a motion to dissolve their partnership. Can he do that? If he can prove that Jerome's actions are damaging the business, absolutely. And given that they've lost 3 major clients in the past month. Zara pulled up Jerome's business website on her computer. It looked the same as always: professional photos, testimonials from satisfied clients, Jerome's bio highlighting his success and expertise. But she noticed something new. A small disclaimer at the bottom of the page. Jerome Patterson is currently operating as a sole proprietor. Previous testimonials and case studies may reflect work completed in partnership with other professionals. He's already been forced out, she realized. Looks like it. And here's the kicker: his office lease was co-signed by his business partner. Guess who's suddenly responsible for the full rent on a downtown office suite? Jerome had spent years building his image as a successful investor and businessman. That image had been the foundation of everything: his social status, his appeal to wealthy clients, his ability to attract someone like Candace. Without it, he was just a middle-aged man with expensive tastes and no way to pay for them. Her email chimed with a message from an address she didn't recognize. zcollins.consulting@gmail.com. Miss Collins? My name is Teresa Nguyen, and I'm a reporter with the Business Journal. I'm working on a story about financial abuse in marriages and the impact on women's careers. Several people have suggested I speak with you about your experience. I'm particularly interested in how you've rebuilt your professional life after your marriage ended. Your success story could inspire other women in similar situations. Would you be available for an interview this week? Best regards, Teresa Nguyen. A success story. 6 months ago, Zara would never have described herself that way. Now, looking at her calendar full of client meetings and her bank account growing from her own work, she realized it was true. She was succeeding. Not despite Jerome's betrayal, but because of her response to it. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jerome. We need to talk. Things have gotten out of hand. For the first time in weeks, she decided to respond. You're right. They have gotten out of hand. You should have thought about that before you stole from me and humiliated me in public. I never meant for any of this to happen. I made mistakes, but this is destroying my life. You destroyed your own life. I'm just living mine. Zara, please. I'm losing everything. She stared at the message for a long moment, waiting to feel something. Sympathy, perhaps. Regret. Some flicker of the love she'd once felt for him. Instead, she felt nothing but relief. That's not my problem anymore, Jerome. She blocked his number and returned to work. Outside her window, the city hummed with possibility. She had clients to serve, a business to build, and a future to create. Jerome's destruction was his own responsibility. The knock on Zara's office door came at 6 p.m. on a Friday, long after her assistant had gone home. She looked up from her computer to see Jerome standing in her doorway, looking nothing like the confident man who had walked out on her 2 months ago. His usually perfect hair was disheveled. His expensive suit was wrinkled. There were dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and stress. Hello, Zara? She didn't invite him in. My office building has security, Jerome. How did you get up here? I told them I was your husband. Ex-husband. And that ended your right to show up wherever I work. She reached for her phone. I'm calling security. Wait, please. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Something in his voice made her pause. He sounded broken in a way she'd never heard before. Still, she kept her hand on the phone. 5 minutes. Then you leave and you don't come back. Jerome stepped into her office and she was struck by how different he looked. Smaller somehow. Defeated. Your office is nice, he said, glancing around at the tasteful furniture and the wall of professional awards she'd earned before their marriage. Thank you. What do you want, Jerome? He sat down without being invited, a breach of manners that the old Jerome never would have committed. I want to come home. The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Excuse me? I made a terrible mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me and I want to fix it. Zara leaned back in her chair, studying his face. You want to fix it? Yes. I know I hurt you. I know I behaved badly. But we can work through this. People overcome affairs all the time. We can go to counseling, take a trip somewhere nice, start over. Start over. She repeated his words slowly, tasting them. And what about the money you stole from me? I'll pay back every penny. With interest. What about the humiliation? The way you called me a disgrace in front of a restaurant full of people? Jerome's face flushed. I was under a lot of pressure. I wasn't thinking clearly. I said things I didn't mean. Really? Because you seemed very clear about what you meant that night. You said I was holding you back from reaching your full potential. You said success requires leaving dead weight behind. I was angry. People say things they don't mean when they're angry. Zara stood up and walked to her window, looking out at the city lights. You know what's interesting, Jerome? I don't think you were angry that night. I think you were honest. Maybe for the first time in our entire marriage. That's not true. She turned back to face him. Isn't it? Think about it. You spent months planning your exit strategy. You systematically stole money from my accounts to fund your affair. You made deals with Candace's father about marrying her after our divorce was final. That's not anger, Jerome. That's calculation. His mouth opened and closed without sound. The only thing you didn't calculate was getting caught. You thought you'd ride off into the sunset with your young girlfriend and my money, leaving me to pick up the pieces of the life you destroyed. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. Jerome was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I felt trapped. Trapped. You were so good. So moral and principled and content with our small life. You were happy managing budgets for community centers and helping poor people apply for assistance. You didn't want more. More what? Success. Status. Recognition. I wanted to build something important, something that mattered. I wanted to be somebody. Zara felt a laugh bubbling up from somewhere deep in her chest. And you couldn't be somebody while married to me? You didn't understand ambition. You were always talking about giving back and making a difference, like making money was somehow shameful. So you decided to steal my money to impress a 25-year-old. Jerome's face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Candace was supposed to be a stepping stone. Her father's connections, his money, it would have opened doors for us. For both of us. For both of us. The words tasted bitter. After you divorced me and left me with nothing, I would have taken care of you. Made sure you were comfortable. The condescension in his voice was breathtaking. Even now, even after everything, he still saw her as something to be managed rather than someone to be respected. Jerome, do you want to know what I've learned about myself these past 2 months? He nodded eagerly, probably hoping she was about to forgive him. I learned that I don't need you. I don't need your money or your connections or your version of success. I've built my own business, made my own money, and I've done it all without compromising my values or stealing from anyone. Zara. I learned that the woman you called a disgrace is actually pretty remarkable. I have 3 new clients this month, a waiting list of organizations that want to work with me, and a book deal to write about women rebuilding their lives after financial abuse. Jerome's face went pale. A book deal? About women who discover their worth after their husbands try to throw them away. It's going to be very popular, I think. You can't write about our marriage. About private things. I can write about whatever I want. Just like you could steal whatever you wanted and humiliate whoever you wanted. Funny how freedom works. Jerome stood up abruptly, his composure finally cracking completely. This is insane. You're destroying both our lives out of spite. I'm not destroying anything. I'm building. You're the one who destroyed our life together when you decided I wasn't worth keeping. I'm here now. I'm trying to fix things. No, you're not. You're here because your other options fell through. Candace left you when she found out you were a thief. Her father cut you off when he realized you were using his daughter. Your business partner kicked you out when your reputation became a liability. Each word hit him like a physical blow. You're not here because you love me or miss me or regret hurting me. You're here because you're desperate and you think I'm your last chance to avoid the consequences of your choices. That's not true. Zara walked to her desk and picked up her phone. Security? There's someone in my office who needs to be escorted out. Zara, please. Don't do this. I need you. She looked at him, really looked at him for what she knew would be the last time. The man she'd loved, the man she'd trusted with her heart and her future. The man who had thrown it all away for the promise of something shinier. I needed you too, Jerome. I needed you to respect me and value me and stand by me. Instead, you stole from me and betrayed me and tried to convince me I was worthless. Security appeared in her doorway, 2 large men in uniform who looked very serious about their job. The difference is, Zara continued, when you didn't give me what I needed, I learned I could give it to myself. When I don't give you what you need, you fall apart. Jerome looked at her with something like panic. What am I supposed to do now? Figure it out. Just like I did. Security escorted him toward the elevator, but he turned back at the last moment. You'll regret this, Zara. When you're alone and you realize what you've thrown away. I already know what I threw away, she called after him. 8 years of making myself smaller so you could feel bigger. And you're right, I do regret it. I regret waiting so long to remember who I really am. The elevator doors closed and Jerome was gone. Zara stood in her office for several minutes, listening to the quiet hum of the building around her. She felt lighter somehow, like she'd been carrying a weight she hadn't even noticed until it was gone. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rochelle. Dinner tonight? I have good news about the divorce settlement. She typed back, "Yes. I have something to celebrate." For the first time in months, that was completely true. 6 months after Jerome's pathetic attempt at reconciliation, Zara stood before a packed auditorium at the Portland Convention Center, delivering the keynote address at the Pacific Northwest Women in Business Conference. 18 months ago, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the microphone, "I thought my worth was tied to my husband's approval. I had convinced myself that my success was measured by how well I supported his ambitions rather than pursuing my own." The audience of nearly 500 women listened with rapt attention. In the front row, Zara could see familiar faces, clients who had become friends, colleagues who had supported her journey, and Rochelle, who was beaming with pride. "Today, my consulting firm has 12 employees and clients in 6 states. We've helped communities secure over $20 million in federal grants. We've facilitated affordable housing projects that will serve thousands of families." Applause rippled through the auditorium. But the numbers aren't the real story. The real story is what happens when you stop asking permission to be who you are. After her speech, Zara was surrounded by women wanting to share their own stories, ask for advice, or simply express gratitude for her honesty. She signed copies of her book, Reclaiming Your Worth, a guide to financial and emotional recovery after abuse, and exchanged business cards with potential collaborators. It was nearly 10 p.m. when she finally made it back to her hotel room, exhausted but energized. Her phone showed dozens of missed calls and messages, interview requests, client inquiries, congratulations from friends around the country. One message stood out from the others. It was from Patricia Whitmore. "Zara, I watched your speech online and I'm so proud of how far you've come. Harrison and I would love to have you over for dinner when you're back in town. There's someone we'd like you to meet, our son Michael. He's a doctor, recently divorced, and I think you two might have a lot in common." Zara smiled, setting the phone aside. She wasn't ready for romance yet, but she appreciated the thought. For the first time in years, her future felt wide open, full of possibilities she was free to explore at her own pace. Her laptop chimed with an email from her assistant. "Miss Collins, the Forbes reporter wants to schedule your interview for next week. Also, the mayor's office called about the urban planning position. And Jerome Patterson called the office 3 times today asking to speak with you." Jerome. She hadn't heard from him directly in months, though Rochelle kept her updated on his ongoing legal troubles. The restaurant bill had turned into a civil lawsuit. His former business partner was pursuing him for unpaid debts. The IRS was auditing his taxes after questions arose about his business expenses. According to Rochelle's sources, he was living in a studio apartment across town and working as a commission-only insurance salesman. Another message from her assistant. "Also, there's a reporter from the Business Journal asking about Jerome's bankruptcy filing. Should I refer him to your attorney?" Bankruptcy. Zara felt a brief flicker of something that might have been sympathy, but it passed quickly. Jerome had made his choices just as she had made hers. She opened her laptop and pulled up the website for her consulting firm, Collins Community Development. 13 full-time employees now, with plans to hire 5 more by the end of the year. Projects in urban planning, non-profit management, and community organizing across the Pacific Northwest. Her personal net worth had tripled in the past year through a combination of book sales, speaking fees, and consulting contracts. She owned her office building now, had purchased a small house in the hills overlooking the city, and had started a scholarship fund for women pursuing graduate degrees in urban planning. None of it had required stealing from anyone or humiliating anyone or abandoning anyone who trusted her. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize. "Zara Collins." "Miss Collins? This is Dr. Michael Whitmore. My mother gave me your number and suggested I call." The voice was warm, professional, with a slight accent she couldn't place. "Dr. Whitmore. Your mother mentioned you might call. I hope that's all right. I know cold calls can be intrusive, but my mother was quite insistent that we should meet." Zara found herself smiling. "Your mother is a remarkable woman." "She is indeed. I was wondering if you might be free for coffee sometime this week? I'd love to hear about your work in community development. I'm involved with a free clinic that's trying to expand its services to underserved neighborhoods." Professional interest. That was safe, comfortable territory. "I'd be happy to discuss it. Are you free Wednesday afternoon?" "Perfect. There's a coffee shop called Brew and Bean downtown. Do you know it?" "I do. How about 2 o'clock? "Excellent. I look forward to meeting you, Miss Collins." After hanging up, Zara realized she was looking forward to it too. Not because she was ready for romance, but because she was curious about his work and excited about the possibility of a new project. Her phone buzzed with one final message of the day. Jerome's number. I saw your speech online. You look happy. I'm glad. She stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some conversations were over. Some chapters were closed. She had new stories to write. The coffee shop was crowded on Wednesday afternoon, filled with the usual mix of students, freelancers, and business professionals. Zara arrived a few minutes early and claimed a corner table where she could watch for Dr. Whitmore. She didn't have to wait long. A tall man with kind eyes and graying temples approached her table, extending his hand with a smile. Miss Collins? Michael Whitmore. His handshake was firm but not aggressive, and he waited for her to sit before taking his own seat. Good manners without pretension, a refreshing change from the power games she'd grown accustomed to in business meetings. Please call me Zara. Tell me about your clinic. For the next hour, they discussed his work providing healthcare to homeless populations and her experience helping communities navigate federal grant applications. It was the kind of conversation Zara loved, focused on solving real problems for real people. We're trying to expand our mental health services, Michael explained, but the funding requirements are incredibly complex. I've been told you're the expert on making sense of bureaucratic nightmares. I do have experience cutting through red tape, Zara admitted. I'd be happy to look at your grant applications and see where I might help. That would be wonderful. I have to warn you though, our budget for consulting fees is pretty modest. Zara waved off his concern. Community health is exactly the kind of work I got into this field to support. We can work something out. They were discussing meeting schedules when Zara became aware of someone standing beside their table. She looked up to find Jerome, looking haggard and desperate. Zara, I need to talk to you. Michael started to stand, but Zara gestured for him to remain seated. Jerome, I've told you not to contact me. It's important. It's about the bankruptcy proceedings. That's between you and your attorney. Jerome's eyes flicked to Michael, taking in his expensive suit and confident posture. Who's this? Your new boyfriend? The possessive tone in his voice made Zara's jaw clench. That's none of your business. Actually, it is my business. We're still married. No, Jerome. We're divorced. The papers were finalized 3 months ago. Michael cleared his throat. Perhaps I should give you some privacy. No, Zara said firmly. Jerome was just leaving. But Jerome didn't leave. Instead, he pulled out the chair next to her and sat down uninvited. Zara, listen to me. I'm losing everything. My apartment, my car, everything. I need your help. The desperation in his voice was palpable, but Zara felt nothing but irritation. You needed my help a year ago when you decided to steal from me and cheat on me. I needed your respect and loyalty. Neither of us got what we needed. I made mistakes. You made choices. There's a difference. Jerome turned to Michael with something like panic in his eyes. You don't understand what you're getting involved with. She's vindictive. She destroyed my business, my reputation, everything I worked for. Michael's expression remained neutral, but Zara saw his jaw tighten slightly. I think you should leave. This doesn't concern you, Jerome snapped. Actually, it does. Michael's voice remained calm but carried an edge of steel. You're harassing someone at my table in my presence. That concerns me very much. Jerome laughed bitterly. Let me guess, she's told you what a victim she is. How I'm some kind of monster who destroyed her life. What I know, Michael said carefully, is that Miss Collins is a successful businesswoman who's built an impressive career helping communities thrive. What I don't know is why her ex-husband thinks it's appropriate to interrupt a business meeting to ask for money. Money? Jerome's voice rose enough that other patrons began to stare. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for basic human decency. For her to call off her dogs. Zara felt her temper flare. What dogs? The reporters. The investigators. Someone's been feeding them information about my finances, my business deals. They know things that only you would know. Jerome, you filed for bankruptcy. That's public record. You think I need to feed reporters information when it's all available at the courthouse? This is targeted harassment and we both know it. Michael stood abruptly. That's enough. You need to leave now or I'm calling security. Jerome ignored him, focusing entirely on Zara. I know you hate me. I know I hurt you. But this has gone too far. You're destroying my life out of spite. Something cold and hard crystallized in Zara's chest. She stood slowly, her voice deadly quiet. You want to talk about destroyed lives? Let's talk about the night you called me a disgrace in front of a restaurant full of people. Let's talk about the months you spent stealing my money to fund your affair. Let's talk about how you plan to divorce me and leave me with nothing while you married your girlfriend. Jerome's face flushed red. That was different. How? How was that different? I never meant to hurt you. You didn't care if you hurt me. There's a difference. Zara's voice carried clearly through the coffee shop now, and she didn't care who heard. You thought I was weak. You thought I would just disappear quietly and let you rewrite history to make yourself the victim. Zara, please. You know what the difference is between us, Jerome? When my life fell apart, I built it back up with my own work, my own skills, my own integrity. When your life falls apart, you come begging to the woman you betrayed. She picked up her purse and business materials. I haven't destroyed your life. Your own choices destroyed your life. I just refused to let you destroy mine. Jerome reached for her arm as she turned to leave. Zara, wait. Michael's hand clamped down on Jerome's wrist before he could touch her. Don't. For a moment, the two men stared at each other. Jerome was taller, but Michael had the calm confidence of someone who was comfortable in his own skin. After a few seconds, Jerome released his grip. This isn't over, he said to Zara. Yes, it is. She looked at him with something like pity. It's been over for a long time. You're just the last one to figure it out. Outside the coffee shop, Michael caught up with her. Are you all right? I'm fine. I'm sorry you had to see that. Don't apologize. You handled that with remarkable grace. They walked in silence for a block before Michael spoke again. Can I ask you something? Of course. Was any of what he said true? About you somehow orchestrating his downfall? Zara stopped walking and looked at him directly. I filed for divorce and documented the financial abuse for the court proceedings. I built my own business and succeeded based on my own merit. I wrote a book about my experience because I thought it might help other women. That's not what I asked. I know what you asked. She met his eyes steadily. No. I didn't orchestrate anything. I just stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own actions. Michael nodded slowly. Good. I was hoping that's what you'd say. Why? Because a woman who builds herself up by tearing others down isn't someone I'd want to work with. Or get to know better. The implication hung in the air between them. Dr. Whitmore. Michael. And I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I'm just saying that when you are ready for friendship, for collaboration, for whatever comes next, I'd like to be considered. Zara felt something warm and unfamiliar unfurl in her chest. Not love, not yet. But possibility. Oh, I'd like that too, she said quietly. He smiled. Good. Now about that grant application. They spent the walk back to her office discussing his clinic's expansion plans, and Zara found herself looking forward to the work ahead. Professional challenges she could solve with her skills and experience. Jerome was right about one thing: this wasn't over. But he was wrong about everything else. 1 year later, Zara stood in the community health clinic that had become her favorite project, watching Dr. Michael Whitmore examine a patient in the new pediatric wing. Through the large windows, she could see the affordable housing complex she'd helped secure funding for, and beyond that, the community garden that had been her first successful grant application after starting her own firm. The final inspection passed, her assistant Lauren said, approaching with a tablet full of updates. The city council voted unanimously to approve the expansion. You did it. Zara smiled, accepting the congratulations of the clinic staff who had gathered around. This project had taken 18 months, involved 3 different federal agencies, and required her to navigate more bureaucratic red tape than she'd ever encountered. But they'd done it: created a comprehensive healthcare facility that would serve over 10,000 people in underserved neighborhoods. Miss Collins? A young voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see Sofia Rodriguez, Roberto's niece, approaching with a nervous smile. The girl was 22, fresh out of college, and had been interning at Zara's firm for the past 6 months. What is it, Sofia? There's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent. Zara's good mood dimmed slightly. She'd been expecting this visit for weeks, ever since Rochelle had warned her that Jerome's financial situation had reached a critical point. She found him waiting in the clinic's lobby, looking even worse than he had at the coffee shop confrontation. His clothes were cheap and ill-fitting, his hair was thin and unkempt, and he had the hollow-eyed look of someone who hadn't slept properly in months. Hello, Jerome. Zara. Thank you for seeing me. She gestured toward a quiet corner where they could talk without disturbing the patients and families in the waiting area. What do you want? I wanted to say goodbye. The word surprised her. Goodbye. I'm leaving Portland. Tonight. There's nothing left for me here. She studied his face, looking for traces of manipulation or some new scheme. Instead, she saw only defeat. Where will you go? Phoenix. I have a cousin there who owns a small accounting firm. He's offered me a job doing bookkeeping. Bookkeeping. For a man who had once bragged about managing millions in investments, it was a stunning fall. That's good. Steady work. Jerome laughed bitterly. Steady work. 40,000 a year to start if I'm lucky. That's what I used to spend on dinner parties. Money isn't everything, Jerome. Easy for you to say. You're successful now. You have everything you wanted. Zara looked around the clinic lobby at the families receiving healthcare they couldn't afford elsewhere, at the staff working to serve their community, at the physical evidence of projects that made real differences in real lives. You're right. I do have what I wanted. But it's not what you think. What do you mean? I didn't want money or status or recognition. I wanted to matter. I wanted my work to have meaning. I wanted to be valued for who I am rather than who I pretended to be. Jerome was quiet for a long moment. I never understood that about you. I know. I thought you were settling. I thought you lacked ambition. You thought I lacked your kind of ambition. But we wanted different things. A little girl with a broken arm walked past them with her mother, heading toward the treatment rooms. The mother was speaking rapid Spanish, reassuring her daughter that the doctors would take good care of her. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd been different? Jerome asked suddenly. What do you mean? If I'd supported your work instead of trying to change you. If I'd been proud of who you were instead of embarrassed. Zara considered the question. I think we would have been happier. Both of us. Do you think you could have loved me? The real me, not the successful version I was trying to become? The question was more vulnerable than anything Jerome had ever said to her. For a moment, she glimpsed the insecure man behind all the posturing and ambition. I don't know, she said honestly. I loved who I thought you were. Whether I could have loved who you actually are, we'll never know. Jerome nodded slowly. I'm sorry, Zara. For all of it. For not seeing your worth until it was too late. I'm sorry too. Sorry that you never learned to see your own worth without needing to diminish someone else's. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the life of the clinic flow around them. Will you be happy in Phoenix? She asked. I don't know. But maybe I'll learn how to be a better person. Maybe starting over with nothing will teach me what actually matters. Maybe it will. Jerome turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm proud of what you've built here. I always knew you were smart, but I never realized how strong you were. I didn't either. You helped me figure that out. By treating you terribly? By forcing me to save myself. After he left, Zara stood in the lobby for several minutes, processing the conversation. She felt lighter somehow, like a weight she'd been carrying had finally been lifted. Everything okay? Michael appeared beside her, his white coat indicating he'd just finished with a patient. Everything's perfect, she said, and meant it. Good. Because I have something to ask you. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. In the 8 months they'd been dating, Michael had been unfailingly confident and steady. What is it? The clinic board is creating a new position, Director of Community Partnerships. It would involve coordinating with local organizations, writing grants, managing our expansion projects. That sounds like a wonderful opportunity for someone. I was hoping that someone might be you. Zara blinked in surprise. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership. The position comes with equity in the clinic and a seat on the board of directors. It would mean working together every day, which I realize might complicate our personal relationship. She studied his face, looking for any sign that this was some kind of romantic manipulation. Instead, she saw only professional respect and personal hope. You're serious. Completely. The board reviewed your track record, your success with our grant applications, your vision for community healthcare. This isn't about us dating, Zara. This is about you being the best person for the job. The offer was tempting. Working full-time in community health, having the resources to make real change, building something meaningful with someone who valued her contributions. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. That evening, Zara sat in her home office, looking over the formal job offer Michael had emailed her. The salary was substantial, the benefits were excellent, and the opportunity to impact healthcare access for thousands of people was exactly the kind of work she'd always dreamed of doing. Her phone rang. Rochelle. I heard Jerome left town, her friend said without preamble. How did you hear that already? His landlord called looking for a forwarding address for the rest of his security deposit. Apparently he broke his lease. He's starting over in Phoenix. Good for him. Maybe some distance will give him perspective. Rochelle paused. How do you feel about it? Relieved, I think. Like a chapter is finally closed. And Michael? How do you feel about him? Zara smiled. Trust Rochelle to cut straight to the heart of things. I feel hopeful. Scared but hopeful. Scared of what? Of trusting someone again. Of building a life with another person and having it fall apart. Honey, that's not a reason to avoid love. That's a reason to choose more carefully. After hanging up, Zara walked out onto her balcony overlooking the city. Portland sparkled below her, full of communities she was helping to strengthen, projects she was proud to have completed, a life she had built entirely on her own terms. She thought about Jerome, probably driving through the desert toward his new life in Phoenix. She hoped he would find peace there, learn to value himself without needing to diminish others. She thought about Michael, probably reviewing patient charts and planning the clinic's expansion. A man who saw her strength as an asset rather than a threat, who wanted to build something meaningful together. Most of all, she thought about herself. The woman who had walked out of Lou Bernardine 18 months ago with nothing but her dignity, and had built an empire from that foundation. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. No pressure on the job offer. Whatever you decide, I'm grateful to have you in my life. She typed back, I'll give you my answer tomorrow. But I'm grateful too. The next morning, Zara arrived at the clinic early, before the staff meeting where she would give Michael her decision. She walked through the pediatric wing, the mental health offices, the community meeting rooms that hosted everything from addiction support groups to financial literacy classes. This was what success looked like to her. Not expensive restaurants or social status or impressing wealthy clients. This was impact. This was meaning. This was a life worth living. She found Michael in his office reviewing patient files. I've made my decision about the position, she said. He looked up, his expression carefully neutral. And? I accept. With one condition. What's that? We maintain separate professional and personal relationships. At work, you're the medical director and I'm the community partnerships director. Period. Michael smiled. Deal. Though I should warn you, the community partnerships director position requires someone who can handle difficult people, navigate complex bureaucracies, and solve problems that seem impossible. Lucky for you, Zara said, settling into the chair across from his desk. I've had some practice with impossible situations. Yes, you have. And you've handled them brilliantly. 6 months later, Zara stood before another packed auditorium, this time delivering the closing address at the National Community Health Conference. Behind her on the screen was a photo of the Portland Clinic's newest wing, a mental health facility that served over 3,000 patients a year. 18 months ago, she began, someone told me I was a disgrace. That I was holding back his potential and he needed to leave me behind to succeed. The audience was completely silent. Today, I want to talk about what happens when you stop believing other people's limitations are your reality. In the front row, Michael smiled at her with the kind of pride that felt like coming home. Beside him sat Rochelle, Lauren, Sophia, and the entire team from the clinic. In the back of the auditorium, completely unnoticed by Zara, a man in an ill-fitting suit watched the speech on his phone while sitting in the Phoenix airport, waiting for his connecting flight to a job interview in Denver. Jerome had seen the conference announcement on social media and couldn't resist watching. On screen, his ex-wife commanded the attention of hundreds of healthcare professionals, discussing funding strategies and community partnerships with the confidence of someone who had never doubted her own worth. He turned off his phone and boarded his flight, finally understanding what he had thrown away and what she had found. Zara finished her speech to a standing ovation, but the applause that mattered most came from the life she had built: meaningful work, genuine relationships, and the unshakable knowledge that she was exactly where she belonged. The restaurant bill from Lou Bernardine still sat unpaid in Jerome's bankruptcy files, a $5,000 reminder that some debts could never be settled with money. But Zara had collected something far more valuable than payment. She had collected herself.